We'll call this meeting to order at 7:04 p.m. First item of business, is there any public comment on the call? Does appear so. All right. First thing we'll do is review the minutes from our January meeting. So if you could take a moment just to look through those and let us know if there are any edits or any adjustments needed. Any adjustments to the minutes from last month? Right then. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Recommended motion.
I recommend a motion to approve the meeting minutes from January 9th, 2023.
Is there
Second that motion. This is Jill.
all in favor?
In favor? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, it passes unanimously. Okay. For chairman's report, nothing major to report. We've had, feels like we were meeting here literally yesterday. Do want to thank Scott for a great one book, well, the whole library staff. Scott for the one book, one town reveal. I think that went over extremely well. Heard a lot from a number of different people that they're very excited about it. I think the other thing to call out too is the one book, one town for the young readers that has been, I think, communicated really well in the schools. My daughter's asking me about it. And if it can make it home from school, in my daughter's head, it is meaningful. So I think that's great. That really, does create such a unifying force in terms of reading in the library for this town. So kudos on that. And I'm looking forward to all the events coming up. With that, I will hand it over to Scott for the library updates.
Sure. So the adult services staff have organized a year 2 of our adult genre reading challenge. The library announced its one book, one town, which included local elected officials, and the press attended as well. It is tax season, so tax prep has begun. That's why our parking lot is continually full. It started on the 24th, and it's servicing local seniors and low-income patrons for free using professional tax services. Circulation staff continues to
Sorry,
promote.
before we move past that, is that getting a lot of use so far? It is, good. Okay.
Yes.
I was curious just with the early, like when we started, just to make sure that it is getting use early on and not everyone waiting until the
Yes.
end. Are we tracking usage so that we know? Okay, good.
So God, now my voice is gonna go.
I know, I ruined your flow.
So circulation staff continues to promote the library's app. Wow. More and more patrons are using it, as evidenced by digital library cards being used for checkout. Teen services staff have set up a study break room at Maine during midterms. Very, very popular. Children's Services reports that early literacy classes consistently reach capacity at both locations. That's even using basically the waiting list. We will have people here waiting to see if they can get in the waiting list. Stats at a glance, we are currently averaging 66 users per day for Overdrive. There are 2,700 holds on average, and the waiting time, which is not great, is 19 days. Are you-
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt your flow again, but I was at a book club, and a lot of the folks have read the OBOT book, which is fantastic. They did mention, though, the waiting time for
Yes.
ebooks, and just curious if there's something we can do about that.
Later on in my report.
Fantastic.
Our usage is beginning, and Jan pointed this out, our usage is beginning to reach levels we've not seen since July of 2020. Remember that we reported that we kind of plateaued a little bit for
Yep.
ebooks, and we're kind of back to that level of circulation. The managers group changed the restrictions on the study rooms from being based on age to grade level. So patrons who attend high school can now use those spaces. We had some issues and we had some feedback from the public. The group came together and decided to kind of change that level of restriction. Our tech services department has begun to regularly use alternative distributors to Baker and Taylor. As I shared with you in the past, we've had issues with Baker and Taylor for almost a year now. So we're starting to look at other distributors to get those books in quicker. The IT department is pleased to have onboarded the new online services Hive Class and Teen Health and Wellness. We'll report on those numbers in a couple months. Some of the facilities issues in January were the elevator at Woods, which I feel like that will be a part of every monthly
Wow,
report.
yeah.
And a reminder that it's a lift, not an elevator. Toddlers opening fuse boxes at Woods, which was quickly taken care of. So thank you, Nancy.
Tiffany lights on and off.
And a little scary. A cracked window at Maine, which is yet to be fixed. It's in the children's room. And potholes at Woods. Good news is the parking lot entrance door at the here at the main library has been fixed. So now we can close both doors. And then another thing we started doing is we bought walkie-talkies during curbside. We repurposed those walkie-talkies. Now the custodians in Maine are walking around with them and has really improved an already incredible response time. But what's been good is I'm hearing when our custodians are being called, hearing what the reason might be, and also an explanation of the custodians really quick why they need to be there, whether it be a sticky diaper in the children's room or, spilled items downstairs. The library had 4 incident reports filled out in January. In one incident, a patron left their bag outside the bathroom with their laptop in it, and another patron took it. Our staff were incredible. All items were retrieved. And the staff did an excellent job, not just in assisting the police, but also kind of being there to help the patron. It was a teenager and our staff felt the need to kind of be there to act as a liaison with the police. They handled it. It was a textbook response and really, really impressive. So to kind of dovetail to your question, I attended the Connecticut Library Association's legislative event. Wow. In Darien on the 18th. The main focus for the Connecticut Library Association is going to be ebooks. There's a one sheet that's in your packet about the state law, and there might be 2 proposed bills. I've also met with Tony, the state librarian, who's wonderful, and members of the Connecticut Library Association, who are all fantastic. Kate, who's in charge of the legislative committee, and kind of been helping them out with it because it seems to be something that's of interest to our local state officials. and they needed some explanation as well. This bill is going from a different perspective than other states, which is instead of taking on copyright, really talks about contract law, and contract law is not a federal matter, it's a state matter. So I know one bill has definitely been put out by, I forgot which committee, and then there's another bill from another committee. So they're working on it hard. I've kind of been pulled into it since it's elected officials, but it's in there and I'll continue to keep you updated on this matter. And I just want to say, Sarah, who's in this call, who's a guest, she's up here from New York, who's watching, attending board meetings for a class. So,
Sarah, can I have, as a guest, can I have your name?
Oh, certainly. I'm trying not to interrupt your meeting, so I'm glad you called on me. Yes, Sarah, Sarah, Potwin, 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 and I'm the executive director of the Niagara Falls Public Library. So
Wow.
Scott has been very gracious to allow me to attend one of my assignments for my right now we're in our financial management course for the postmaster's certificate through Long Island University. This is one of our assignments. So I very much appreciate you allowing me to attend. Thank you.
everything's stable up there?
Now I'm assuming you're pulling a funny there, Scott, being that we had an earthquake this morning.
Yes.
But other than that, things roll along just nicely. Yes.
I
Thank you
did
for
pick up
having
on the emphasis on the H, by the way, Sarah.
I'm sorry.
Emphasis on the H in Sarah.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. We get a little defensive.
My wife is Sarah with an H, so that's why.
There's like a whole secret handshake that goes along with it. It's a thing. But thank you for allowing me to attend.
Absolutely.
I had a quick question, Scott. I've been to the library a couple times in the last week or so and noticed the parking was at capacity with people double parking in
Yes.
certain areas. Have you guys had any people coming in and complaining about that at all to you guys?
We have had complaints and we have been working with the police department and parking enforcement to start doing some ticketing. Because we feel like if there's some ticketing done, that'll actually send the message to the community that we had someone who was parked right on top of the arrow that directs you to turn right into the lot. That car was successfully ticketed. They know it's an issue, and I will speak to the chief of police. There's a department head meeting, I believe next week, and I'll have a conversation with him about a little bit more parking enforcement in our lot.
Just wondering. I mean, there's spaces out on the road, obviously, that you people can park. I mean, I also sometimes park in the other lot because it was in the evening, but I know we're not supposed to tell people to do that.
We've been sending out emails to people and also letting them know there's parking all along this street that's 2-hour parking and relatively easy. We have asked staff sometimes in emergencies, we'll park in the lot. Our staff have been gracious enough and I've been watching them do it because sometimes I do it. We've been parking on the road when we're running in and out. So we're trying our best, but as I would say at my old library, if the parking lot's empty, that's when I'm worried.
Yeah.
Good point.
No, that's a good thing. I always think the same thing. I'm like, oh, this is so great. Thank you.
Yeah. It's a good problem. It's also not a great problem.
Yeah.
Especially those rocks now that I noticed on the side.
Yeah. Exactly.
So they're an entrance now.
Our parking lot is at pre-COVID levels.
Yes.
Along
Yes.
with other things.
Fantastic. Great.
Okay.
All right, anything else with regards to the operations report, Scott?
Nope, that is it.
Great. All right, and then budget update.
So in December, Jan and I met with the town administration, including the town CFO, the budget director, the select woman, and our chief of staff. And the library made the following request, and it was a good meeting. It was 45 minutes to an hour. That was definitely probably 3 to 4 times longer than the first budget meeting I had with the select woman. We came in with the infographic that's in your packet. Jan and I both presented, what we were told, what we were told was a very compelling story for the library. Some information that we gleaned from the state report as well. So we made three major requests. And the first is a capital outlay request to replace the doors of the main library. That led to a long conversation about what capital money should be spent by the Board of Trustees compared to what should be spent by the town. And I have explained to this board, I do believe, doors and toilets are really a matter of the town. Tables, book shelving, things like that. That's when we can start talking about what the trustees should be paying for. We also asked for an increase in part-time payroll. Jan's done some incredible work, kind of sitting down and figuring out what we really need to provide a pay raise that not only speaks to the mandated increases in minimum wage. So right now, some of our clerks are making at or just a little bit more than minimum wage, but also taking benchmark of the Fairfield County Library Directors Group, also CLA, do a really great job of benchmarking pay for libraries. So Jan and I ran a great comparison that kind of showed really what would make us competitive in terms of our part-time clerks and our part-time library associates and librarians. So we're hoping to make some headway there. And then one last thing, which was our big ask, was an additional full-time librarian to focus on teens. Remember that we have one full-time teen librarian for both locations, and that is definitely a growing, as Nancy will tell you, that is a growing population at Woods.
Good to know.
No, I'm just,
Oh,
Checking something.
yeah.
So that's the update. I did speak with the budget director this morning. There's been no official response. I mean, it was a positive initial response, but there's been no official response. I was told that I will get, all department heads will get a call or a request for meeting from the select woman so she can speak to us in person about it. But Jan, did you feel like it was a positive meeting?
Yes, definitely.
So
Very pleasant. It's, yeah.
it was good.
it's great.
Great.
Awesome. Yeah, CLA does a great job with benchmarking for public libraries. They got rid of the academic library one, and that's sad, but it's so nice that we have that data.
Yes, super helpful.
Yeah,
That's great.
because with minimum wage, it's getting rough. And for others. Let's get rid of that.
Jan, you didn't do looking ahead.
Oh, there's.
No, you wanted-
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, then let's look at it again. Okay, we'll go back.
We have a lot of stuff going on this month. We are starting 2 new book clubs outside of the library. One is at Little Pub and one is at JV Percival. And we now have so many book clubs that we're making a brochure on
Ooh.
book clubs.
Oh, very cool.
People have been asking, what are the book clubs? Because it's a little hard to keep track. So you'll see in the report, there are a number of programs going on and then gearing up for the big March OBOT month. The Friends have a Sound Waves concert next, I guess that's this coming Sunday already.
I know, right?
Halfway through February. We have an author coming this Thursday for a tea, which the Friends are doing the refreshments for that. Excited about that. So a lot going on.
Great. All right. All right, it's good. Sickening. All right. By the way, this is a great, I mean, the stats are phenomenal on there. Just really, really good stuff. And I think that's something that, I know we've seen it before. It was just a reminder, like, that we were growing and we're now hitting back to even above that. It's just,
Yeah, this is incredibly impressive when you look at this. I don't know what that was in terms of pre-pandemic, but when you see this for our, the size of the town, that 65,000 or something, and that
Yeah.
many,
exactly.
yeah.
We are the fourth highest circulating library in the state.
That's awesome.
And I love, and I'm so glad you did this again too, the pictures, telling the story.
Yeah,
That's great news. That's impressive, Scott.
yes, it is fantastic. Honestly, I can't wait to see what, you know, the 22-23 numbers look like.
Yeah,
Because it'll, I know these are through 22. But it is really exciting, and I think that just does speak. Wanted to make sure to call it out. All right, so I think that makes sense for budget. Process-wise, Scott, for the budget process, do you remember, I don't remember off the top of my head, when those conversations are gonna be?
So we have gotten the
Had-
preliminary meetings,
Mhm.
but not which meetings we're presenting at. It's
Okay.
much to the complement of the select woman's office. It's much better organized, the way they're presenting the information.
Good,
They recognize some concerns that were brought up by members of the public and department heads. And Frank, who we love, who's the newer budget director, who's a graduate of Rockefeller, so he worked in bars in Albany as well. He's doing a fantastic job kind of getting everything together
Great.
and really getting us better organized. We were used as an example of how we should use statistics more. So once we get the specific dates, if we're even asked to go before the finance board or the RTM, we will definitely let trustees know those dates.
okay,
But we have yet to we've gotten dates, so my calendar looks like I'm at 10 RTM meetings, but in reality, that was to make everything tentative, and then they'll figure out which ones
What
the
meeting.
library has to be at.
And Scott, everything is in person this year, I believe.
Everything is in person, but the select woman was very clear that if a department head did not want to be there in person, they did not have to be, which was impressive. But I'll be there. Because I think it's better in person.
yes. I would
So
agree.
I will definitely be there, especially as someone who's newer. They know me, but they don't.
Yep. Yeah, just as soon as if there is, we obviously want to provide the support, particularly as board chair, I'd like to be there for you. So just let us know whenever
I
that
definitely
comes
will.
up. Cool. All right, town budget reports.
So Q1 of the 2024 budget, so we're still in 2023, but it's the 2024 budget. Jan did a very good job of putting together a report for finance. Really nothing out of the ordinary. Fees and professional services are always higher at the start of the year. That actually made the threshold, it needs to be $10,000 or 10% of the budget. That is above $10,000 and 10% of the budget. And that's mostly because a lot of the software that we use that's library specific is paid for in the beginning of the year. That includes our integrated library system, which I always want the trustees to know about because that's the software that keeps us running. Library materials will do, again, because of the issues from Baker and Taylor, but a significant portion have been encumbered, but just not spent. In other words, we didn't receive the books just yet, but that money has pretty much been spent on our books. Library fines, so on the income side, library fines are up, which was a surprise to the finance office. And that really has to do with the fact that circulation's performing higher, way higher than expected when we made, when we made our projections. So when you circulate more items get returned late and more money is owed to us and collected from the public.
You're probably not gonna like this question.
I might love this question.
Oh, okay, because on Contact and everywhere else, you see CLA, just the amount of Connecticut public libraries now that are fine-free. And so has there been a conversation?
So there's,
We've talked about this.
Oh,
This was
sorry.
The part of,
Did I miss this part?
no, this was all wrapped up in the town charter conversation.
Oh, okay, there we go.
Yes, so that was part of my spiel, is as resulting of the
Yeah,
broader discussion.
Right,
Let's
right.
call it, that based on the language that's in there,
Yeah.
it's difficult for us to transition to a fine-free
right,
model because of how the town is structured. We put that language in there
yeah,
to
yeah,
do so, but I think right now where we stand with it
We can-
is we can't.
okay. It's just we're beginning, it looks,
Oh,
it's fascinating to see every week you see a new one.
and
And so
I
it's
got,
fascinating to see that.
I received an email Friday from a patron
Did we?
asking
Okay,
about us going fine for
Okay.
it. And I was clear that
So-
it's not our
Oh.
decision.
Agree. I've always, I mean, I
Yeah,
was very surprised when they first came on board, and I remember having that conversation, just assuming that the fines came to the library.
Yeah.
And I know that's not the case, so
and unfortunately, we can't.
can't do anything
Yes.
with that return. Okay, thank
Which
you
is-
for that
Which is,
clarification.
and that was, I mean, there were a handful of things that I made mention of, but of course, the whole process got very
Right.
politicized.
Yes, okay, thanks.
Yep. Oh, well, look,
No,
we're
I
gonna
get,
continue pushing.
no, I
forward.
get it, it's, you just see it, and I know you're gonna keep on getting those questions.
Yeah.
With
Yeah,
more
absolutely.
informed folks who will be moving into the community and will see that their own communities do not have. this
Absolutely.
anymore, so.
It's an educational process for
Right.
stakeholders that I
Yeah.
think we can accomplish, but it'll take a little more time because of the charter and because of
Get
the
it,
budget process
forgot about that.
includes revenue. I mean,
Yep.
revenue is the big question when I go
course.
for the
Yeah,
finance board.
Yeah, thank you, thanks for that
Yep.
reminder.
So just one last point is, although not reflected in the report, the administration continues to be concerned with part-time employee budget, which continues to hover over or exceed 100% for that quarter or 25% for the overall budget. So we're running relatively tight for that part-time payroll, which we make the town and the finance office aware of each time we discuss it.
Is that just because your hours have expanded and the budget hasn't met pace? Or-
Well, I would say it's a combination of that. It's a combination of COVID and other people
Yeah.
being out. It's just people having a better respect for their personal work-life balance. So therefore, they're asking for time off more. We have some people who are gonna be out extended periods of time due to having children or elder care. It's really something that everybody's seeing. So we fill those holes with part-time employees. And so that we run a little red on that budget line because of it.
And our part-time budget never really returned to an
Yeah.
adequate amount.
what, is this on here anywhere? I didn't see the part-time,
No, it's not
No.
part of that report. We keep that
just
separate.
making sure. Okay. Great. Yeah, I think that all,
So related to the town budget report, I guess, is the quarterly report for the revolving fund, which you'll see there on the next page. Maybe go to the next page, it's some page, it looks like this.
oh, did you send it out? Might be in my email.
Oh,
Sent it like.
I
Seven.
did see
Here,
the
there
email.
should be one in the back end,
Oh, no, I don't think
I
there
didn't
is.
see one.
right here, Andrew, this
Oh.
one, right here. Which one?
Oh, there it is. Yep.
There's one in this guy. Okay. Thanks.
We just got the good
We
one.
got it.
All right.
So this is for the first 2 quarters. Had a lot of expenses because of the the furniture.
Mhm.
And the last payment on the debt service, which really should have been for FY 22, didn't come out until July, beginning of July, so that's the
Oh.
120,000.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's kind of big. And there's a listing of all the checks that were written.
That's. Yeah, is that
Oh,
on the
geez,
checklist?
look at
Is that
this.
the top one, the 7-1?
Yeah,
Okay. That, I mean, we had it in there, but, planned for, it's just a matter of time, like, as you say. Great.
right, so right now in the checking account and the money market's about the same. It's not. It's pretty close to the same.
Okay.
I'm
Right,
working on that last furniture phase.
okay,
Guess I'll wait till later.
great. Aaron or Jill, any questions?
Yeah.
Right. Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. All right. All over this.
Send me other. For some reason, it's not on this one.
There it is.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't get this.
Yeah, I didn't either.
What's not?
Yeah, so some of the things aren't in the packets that Andrew and I originally
Yeah.
got. It's fine.
No, it's fine. I just pulled it off.
There-
Yes.
I know, strange.
So the next item up for discussion is our policy review, our monthly policy review, which is going to be the unattended adults in children's library policy and the unattended child policy. So, do I have? Oh, I have this attachment 5 and 6. I have.
It's only 5.
Oh.
I didn't, get
Okay.
I put them together.
Okay,
Oh,
It's funny because I almost wrote 5 and 6, and I should have.
thank you. Do you want to voice it over just a little bit, Scott, as
So,
to?
in the packet, there are 2 policies that the administration has suggested reviewing. The first is the unattended child policy, which was actually approved in April of 18 and reviewed in October of 22. But I wanted you to look at it with the policy that we needed to review, which is the unattended adults in the children's department policy. Just ask for you to look at both with the idea of possibly merging the two and laying out some additional guidance on age restrictions for particular services and programming. So I just thought the two should be read together, and we're going to talk about the idea of bringing a policy. We have all these micro policies that I'd like to kind of really put together that speak to each other or for each other. So we're going to draft something for you all to review a couple weeks for the March meeting, and just an effort to consolidate and make, I have always believed that the less, that giant list of policies can really it can be intimidating to a new trustee or a new staff member, where if it's a short list of, and they have sections, that's a little bit easier to look at and follow.
Scott, when you say, when you think about the additional guidance on age restrictions, is that, can you give an example of what you're thinking?
So museum passes can only be loaned out to those who are over 18. Study rooms can only be used by freshmen in high school and older. There is some program age restriction. Adults can't attend teen programming. So really something that fleshes that idea out, not giving exact restrictions on paper, but basically the board saying it trusts the library to create restrictions based on usage, capacity, and, expertise. It is something that worries me because it could then put us, on record. Do we say specifically we don't create age restrictions for printed material? So we're gonna have to really think about this before we
Yeah.
do it. But I think it's worth having the conversation.
And I think, one of the things that I wanted to bring up for discussion with the board.
And have your attention, please. The library will be closing in 20 minutes. Library card or special assistance, please come to the circulation.
Jan, are we on, which Wi-Fi are we on?
Just a reminder, the Wi-Fi
Staff.
will shut down at 7:45.
It shouldn't shut.
Which of mine?
Yeah, I know, right? Then I do like the idea of having, so, I like the idea of having an overarching age, I don't want age guidance, age guidance policy. The benefit of having specifically an unattended children policy in isolation. So I'd like to see what you bring with you next month, because there's definitely value to those additional things. We'll see what it looks like together as opposed to two separate, just a beefed up, not just unattended adults, but rather a larger age restriction, not age guidance, restriction. I'm gonna stay away from restriction. But guidance for that, because the one thing with the unattended children, I think you and I talked about this a little bit, is the nature of people bringing children here or having children come to the library is a key one, obviously, as we found out. So having that clear and not isolated, but like standing on its own for reference could be beneficial. But I'd like to see what it might look like, because it does make sense to have cleaning things up. I just don't want to over simplify stuff or to put
You
too
don't wanna
much into one
see-
thing
Yeah, and you don't want a policy that's too specific.
or difficult to find.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you want to find what the policies are and you're like, oh, age restrictions, well, I guess my kids should be fine. Can't see it clearly in there.
Yeah.
So,
So is this, because I was here, I think, for the 2018 and then 2022. The other,
definitely. everything.
I know,
Yeah.
exactly, I know,
Very
2018, definitely. Unattended adults and children's department, so this is a new policy, correct?
No, it's an old policy. It's from
Old.
2000.
Have
I don't have the
reviewed that.
year on it. I think it was like 2016.
Okay,
It's
okay,
it's one of our older policies.
it's kind of fascinating, understandable.
Yes.
Understandable, yeah.
Very understandable, but,
Yes.
okay.
But that's where I think that there may be value to the other. And one thing I would ask Scott, when you do that, if there are other policies that include language around this, just let us know.
Yes.
Because there may be an opportunity for us to simplify other ones and eventually have more of an overarching. But for this purpose, I think it makes a lot of sense.
And the other piece too is we have seen, and there are some libraries that have policies around older individuals that are experiencing cognitive decline. Nancy specifically at Woods has had a few incidents that are recorded in incident reports around this. That was actually last month. That was the bulk of our incident reports. So Nancy's been looking at policies, and we're also talking about possibly including that in there, just talking about safety and what is our responsibility and what's the responsibility of the caregivers.
Yeah, I think that it's something along the lines of guidelines at each stage of life, effectively. Makes sense. Cool. Yeah, no, I'll appreciate you bringing, we'll continue to have this for review, everybody gather their thoughts on this one. And then we'll discuss in next month's call, or meeting rather. Just happens to be mostly a call today. All right. So for committee and liaison reports, space planning, we have Jan, any updates on?
Well, we had a couple of chairs that had broken. We're not too pleased about
From
that, but
new chairs?
Yeah. One was a metal frame chair and somehow the metal actually broke. But it was repaired, promptly repaired, and whatever was loose with the other one was tightened up. And they forgot to take the sample chairs that we still have downstairs. And we're moving on to the finalizing what we want to do with that.
How'd the vote turn out?
periodicals room. The vote was pretty close.
91 people
The
voted?
the white chair was, definitely popular.
Well,
You didn't like the white chair?
No, I was just,
I mean,
the
we're not-
white chair.
White.
which is not, it will be a darker color to match the room.
We've got some, fabric samples in today to look at.
Oh,
We're
great.
gonna be getting some.
So
Good.
that wasn't as close. What was close was the hard chairs.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
And that did have a
height component.
height component and a gender component to it.
Interesting.
That was interesting to see, but the softer chairs, it was more of a 75-25 split, maybe 70-30. And it was interesting because it fell across all
Yeah,
the criteria.
interesting. I mean, I'm very happy you guys did that, the voting process. I thought that was pretty cool and, you know, including all the different parts. That's really some interesting stuff coming out of that, but cool. All right, fundraising committee, we will have to get a follow-up from, Peter at next month's meeting with regards to the, what is it, the, Foundation Center subscription as process for that. Just to reiterate, that is something that we'll want to make sure that we have a clear roadmap on how it's going to be used, so that when we turn it on, we're ready to utilize that. Be it between staff, Peter and the friends.
And just to bring one thing up that was brought up to me by a patron this weekend, was that Westport Library not only has a subscription, and it is that name that we found.
Oh, yeah.
But they actually provide it to the public. So there's a public side of it. So we might want to think about that, because this person came specifically to see if we had it,
Interesting.
and then we had a conversation back.
So we're providing, the Westport Libraries provide that as a resource to their patrons.
Yeah. With trainings.
Interesting. Interesting.
Is it
Yeah.
the same, the Foundation Center one or
Yes.
something similar?
It's the Foundation Center, but they've changed it to some
Yeah.
one word
Okay.
name.
So they do grant writing training, Scott?
No, they do training on how to use that particular portal to
Mm.
find foundations and to find nonprofits. Because it's got two functions for like us and our friends group. It would be a way for us to find foundations. Similarly, it also lists nonprofits. So foundations look at it, see if there's exciting nonprofits that they can donate to.
Interesting.
Scott, could you find out more about what that would look like from a cost perspective to
Yes.
share at next month's meeting? Because it's, you know, it's one of those things, if there's benefit for marginal, you know, marginal cost, there's definitely reason to do that, potentially. The ad hoc bond committee that we established last week has not had a chance to meet, nor have we had opportunity to have conversation with Scott on that. However, as it relates to the 2024 budget requests, I would say we should probably be talking sooner rather than later in order to start putting our pen to paper with regards to what that's going to look like. So I will see if we can find some time. Oh, let's find 3 trustees with young kids.
Good luck.
Yeah, I know, between myself, Aaron, and Chris. I'll see if we can find some time. And maybe it's one of the things we do, a call in the evening.
We can lock the kids in here, I'll bring some Nerf guns.
Down with that. I am down for that, yeah, for sure. But yeah, we should get at least some initial thoughts on that so we can start to have those broader conversations, but, you know, both from a amount perspective, timing perspective, and, you know, what we want to do with it. Big list and then
Agree.
thought back.
Yep.
Great. And then we do not have a member of the Friends with us today.
Donna sent her report.
Ah, she did, wonderful.
So, she wanted me to tell you that they're supporting the offsite, the new book groups offsite at JB Bristol and Little Pub.
Great.
And they're also providing support for our author talk this Thursday, and also one on, February 22nd, or
The library will be closing in 10 minutes. Please check out the material now.
Jenny said supporting the offsite book clubs and what else?
the author talks on 2/9 and 2/22 here at the library. Jennifer Butler is going to be holding her fashion show, her spring fashion show here at the Kirshner Gallery on March 12th. It's a Sunday. If you can come, it would be great. And then, of course, the OBA Author Talk is a big Friends event as well. And the annual literary luncheon at the Patterson Club is planned for May 24th with Jane Rosen talking about her new book. The registration is already open for that, so please think about attending. And their next board meeting is Tuesday, February 21st.
Jen, when is OBOT registration open?
February 28th will begin.
February 28th?
Right. Thank you, Donna. All right, on to the treasurer's report. Erin, are you able to speak to it, or do you want us to just voice it
No,
out?
I can speak. I just got home, so this is good timing.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
Sorry, I meant to print those, but I didn't, I don't know why. I think I printed them and the printer was out of paper.
That's
But
all right.
I have it on the screen.
That's why the supply.
Can everyone see that? Can the people at home see that, or do I have to share it somehow?
You probably have to share it, but Erin sent it out yesterday.
All right.
I sent it. I mean, I can just talk to it unless you're able to pull it.
That's fine.
Yeah, good. Short update for this month. It was a good month. Market's up, so the funds were up. We're over 8 million for the combined Memorial and Jennings Fund, which I think is the first time in a good 6 to 9 months since Q2 of last year that the funds were over 8 million, up 6% for the month. And the only other update I have is just the final full year performance for the funds, down 16% for the full year, or I should say 16.8% for the full year of 22. Not specifically for my report, but Scott, I was kind of in and out during some of your budget updates. So I'll reach out separately because I'd be interested to hear more about the details of the budget conversation with the town and all that's involved.
Excellent. Love to do it.
Great. And that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you, Erin. All right. On to new business. We have 2 items to discuss. The first is it's an item that Scott and I discussed earlier or last week about the idea of creating a domain for the trustees. So we've been discussing the email addresses, and individual email address would be we would establish, well, Scott, do you mind speaking to it?
So what we would do is we would purchase a domain and domain services, maybe through Google. We've actually reached out to their nonprofit. That's kind of like we wouldn't have to set up a website, but we could do something like fpltrustees.org or something like that. That way we can set up email accounts. You would use those email accounts, and it would really be, secretary would oversee it, but probably Jim or someone on staff would kind of help you with the mechanics of it. But this way we can sign people up for their emails when they're brought in onto the board. We can take people's emails, we wouldn't erase the email, but back the emails up in case there's FOIL requests. And I mean, most importantly, because this really came from this, it gives us a way to store those emails if there's a FOIL request. The town was very clear that the board side of things wasn't understandably their responsibility. We have not completely fulfilled the last FOIA request, which makes me nervous. So this way, the board and trustees have a little bit of
Jason,
have a little bit of control over it. Because the other issue is we could get a FOIA request for, email exchange about hiring the new town librarian. Then we'd have to reach out to trustees who are no longer with us.
Yep.
As trustees, they're still with us.
Right.
But it would still, I could see where,
Something happened to David?
yeah, well, I could see where Dave would be like, I erased all those emails. So this way we have a little bit better control and we fall under FOIA. Because remember, in Connecticut, the FOIA rules are actually a little stronger.
Yep.
There's state and there's federal laws. So I think we just need to tighten up, and I think this is a way to do it.
Yeah.
Would these be town email addresses?
No, we would have our own domain. So this
Oh, okay.
would be on us. So when we got the FOIA request, it was easy for the staff side because Dave Kelly, who's head of IT for all of the town, he just did a search that got us 30,000 emails.
Yeah, yeah.
Riveting. So this way we could, Jim, if our IT person was to do it, Jim could run a search, not see anything, dump the file to the president or the secretary, and then they can go through it and figure out what needs to be in there and what doesn't need to be in there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to do it. And then we can also, there's benefits to doing something like this with, particularly like Gmail or Google rather, so that we'd have some level of shared drive that could be operated, shared calendar that could be operated. One of the things Scott and I were discussing is with a shared calendar, we could have items put onto the calendar for us as trustees, of dates of note or events of note. So, Scott, let's talk about cost on that one. And if you can send me whatever information, what we'll do is review it in our next meeting and then go from there. The other new item to discuss is our new trustee search, because in as much as 6 years is a very long time, that time is growing very short for Christina.
It's gonna be weird.
Ooh.
So we will have to, we'll have to find, put out a search. We can have additional discussions. I'll probably put together, not an official committee, but just pick your brain, Aaron, since you're the most recent.
Yep.
And probably you as well, Christina, and anybody that wants. Jill, if you want to throw some input in, I don't know, you're here.
Just from the marketing aspect of it, because we did that video with you, Andrew, remember?
Yep.
Years ago.
Yeah.
So maybe there's something we can figure out, some kind of marketing.
Potentially.
Why
Yeah,
did you
exactly.
join? What made you decide to do it, Aaron, and that apply, that kind of thing, so.
Yeah. So we should also, we should look back through our previous candidates, see if anybody's still interested.
Well, we also, didn't we put it on the website too? We got a really good batch of folks, right?
We
Is
did.
that how we advertised?
Yeah.
I thought that was-
I put it on next door, I think, too.
Yeah, I saw it on social media. I thought it I think it was the town. Was it the town site?
Is it the
Instagram
town letter, the town newsletter?
It may have been.
It was
Brenda's.
somebody's Instagram site, whether it was the
Oh.
library directly or the town, one of the two.
Maybe Brenda put it in her newsletter and posted it
Okay.
or something
Yeah.
on her page.
Yeah,
I feel like that happened.
definitely a social media post that I saw.
I think it was also at the time we talked about what we were looking for. So, and I think that's probably something we should talk about.
Chris didn't want to be treasurer.
Right, exactly.
Aaron's finance background really helped a
Yeah.
lot.
Yes, we should have a conversation as to what we're looking for. Kristen, I'll I'll spare those conversations. I'll reach out individually. We can talk about that and then, move forward with the search. It's not imminent, obviously. We have some time, but I would like to at least start having those conversations. With regards to old business, we now, do not have this as a relevant item. So is there anything else that we have not discussed? All right. So with that, I will do, oh wait, no, I almost spoiled David. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
All right, Aaron, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Bill, second. All right, move to adjourn our meeting on February 6th. All in favor?
Bye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. This meeting is adjourned at 8 PM.